Morning, I am Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you. Going to spend some time talking to you about you and your business. Got a lot to talk about, so I think let me jump straight into it with my good friend Jason Smith. He's with a company called OperatingCosts.com, and he's a regular contributor here on The Price of Business. And I love what he does. In an era where getting something for nothing that has value is hard to find. In his case, companies are getting huge largesse back by working with them and are only spending money if they're saving money. And that's just so hard to find. And I love what you guys do. And Jason, as always, welcome to the show. Kind of give us your elevator pitch before you introduce the guest today, which looks like a great one, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, max profits at operatingcosts.com. As Kevin just alluded, we provide our clients with expense reduction services. And that allows organizations to maximize operating profits by saving up to 40% in more than 35 common expense categories. All of our work is guaranteed. We save you money or our services are free. Not many people can offer that type of guarantee.
No.
So our guest today is Tim DeCoo. He's a national healthcare partner for Hardesty LLC. Tim is a CFO who has a great deal of experience working within middle market hospitals, helping them navigate through all sorts of challenges healthcare today presents.
Yeah, well, welcome to the program. Why don't you kind of start off by kind of giving us a panoramic overview of Hardesty?
Oh, thank you. I certainly appreciate being on the show today. Hardesty is a national. We refer to ourselves as a financial solutions company. While we do search and placement in the CFO space, a lot of our work is project work and interim solutions to help companies that are in a critical period. It could be a permanent placement for a new CFO, but quite often it's a company that can't get through a transaction.
Good.
And we go in and help tee them up so they can get through it.
Very good. Go right ahead there, Jason.
Thank you. Yeah, Tim, I mentioned earlier some of the challenges healthcare today presents. Tell us how you've helped hospitals navigate through some of these challenges.
The healthcare space, of course, is very dynamic today, and there's so many squeezes coming from different ends. The CFOs put in an interesting role to help the facility navigate through it, and quite often in a system that's reducing its labor force, and the CFO position has to have a pretty good bandwidth to be able to tackle those challenges. In the old days, we just did more volume, but in the new healthcare model, that's not necessarily the answer. An old phrase in healthcare was, census hides all sins. If you can grow the business, then you're not as worried about the little stuff. Well, now you have to pay attention to the little stuff. You have to pay attention to all of it. And healthcare, I think, has to go back and learn from many of the other industries how to be the most efficient and to be sustainable today.
How disruptive has the changes in healthcare been for companies? How do you compare it historically? From a historical context.
From a historical context, the sector of healthcare that probably is under the most attack is the small operation. And so what you're seeing in the market today is more than I've ever seen it is a huge a trend towards rolling up into larger institutions.
Yeah, which I think is the ultimate goal of the federal government anyway. You can hold those far more accountable than you can small businesses. To me, it comes down a lot to control, not really what's best for the economy or for business. That's just my view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and the risk we run is. One of the first entrepreneurs in history was the local doctor.
Yeah,
and they're getting forced into large health systems, being bought up by hospitals, and at the end of the day, that the loss of that productivity, when now he's an employee and it's 5:00, I'm going home.
Yeah,
that's I don't think we really have an adequate measure of what that's going to be worth.
Yep, very good. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, you were mentioning some of the smaller operations. It's much more difficult for them to be in today's market. Other than a GPO, a group purchasing organization, which does allow smaller organizations to get better purchasing power, of course, how would a hospital keep its expenses from spiraling out of control? Or how would a CFO help a hospital do that?
Well, there are a couple of ways. for the very small ones, they probably don't have the bandwidth to have a high-level CFO or the resources. But what they can do is strategically bring in fractional support to help guide them, so that the local group can stay, abreast of the changes, and that's probably the biggest, one of the biggest issues. But in terms of cost, where in let's say a regional facility to large facilities, they now have a lot of analytics that they need to start paying attention to. A couple of years ago, we didn't have electronic medical records. Now we do. Now there's a lot of data there that can be mined to really, help the facility or the health system understand what's going on and get ahead of the curve, hopefully, or certainly not be behind it.
By the way, you can learn more about Tim over at HardestyLLC.com. That's HARDESTY LLC.com. Jason?
Another question. You said fractional support where you bring in staff. That's interesting. What sort of projects do you generally bring in staff for? Are they short-term projects or longer-term projects?
It's all of the above. It could be due diligence support. It could be taking a look at the system globally and make sure that it's really on top of what are today's best practices, whether that be the supply chain, the revenue cycle, the financing structure. But we come in and actually become an extension of management to work with them. Pull the pencil out and help them get drive through the issues. And we see that especially in some of the hospitals where they have, in reaction to reducing staying in line with the reduced revenue streams, they've reduced their staff and they're buried.
Yeah.
So we might come in and help them just get through a project. Some of the big ones coming up, for example, is the conversion to ICD-10, which is a new coding method, and that's creating millions of dollars of cost challenges, I think, to hospitals.
Got to wrap it up with that. Great conversation. Jason Smith, you can learn more about him at operatingcost.com. And then Tim DeCue, you can learn more about him at HardestyLLC.com. That's HARDESTYLLC.com. And when we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here can be found over there at USDailyReview.com. Big new changes coming up there. Make sure you check them out next week. More for you right after this on The Price of Business.
She ain't got